So, hi guys and girls, welcome back to the Beehive YouTube channel. It's Bimpe here today, and I've got Nia Simpson on the channel, the Beehive YouTube channel today. Nia has done some great work around what she's called the compact cane. I'm just going to position myself a little bit better. Okay, there we go. So Nia's done some great work with the compact cane, and she's going to tell us about her story. So this is part of the series of interviewing Lionhearts like Nia with her Paragon service product that she's packaged up and hoping to impact many people's lives. So Nia, I'm going to introduce you. You've done quite a bit and achieved quite a lot already. So obviously we're trying to encourage other people to embark on their purpose, to impact lives and create some meaningful, what you call meaningful and purposeful products, and hoping that with you sharing your story, your product development story, you can impact and share how other people can kind of embark on a similar journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nia Simpson was a mechanical engineer. So she graduated from the University of Bath. She's also an entrepreneur, as we know, and founder of the Compact Cane. And she's obviously a Bath alumni who has managed to successfully win the Innovators Awards. Okay. So I read up a bit about you, and you've been an inventor from the age of 1, and I'm hoping you will share your story with us about that in a moment. So she's been inventing since the age of 1, and as I've mentioned, she's young, she's dedicated, she's what I call a lionheart. Someone who's really gone out and achieved something great. And you definitely put your users at the heart and center of what you're doing, and use technology and your engineering skills to basically manufacture something amazing. So, Naya, I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit about you before we start talking about your compact cane.
Cheers. Thank you. Thanks for the intro. So I'm Nia. As we've been saying that I graduated from University of Bath doing mechanical engineering with advanced design and innovation. But it's true that probably the video that you saw was a home video where my parents recognized that I love to problem solve, I love to do things and use my hands to create technical solutions and stuff. So yeah, from a young age, I've been really interested in engineering, or more so like product design. I've been really fascinated with it. Like, my heart is in it, and I love the idea. I love the idea of like going from a problem, someone's problem, working with them to create something that's meaningful and tangible at the end. I guess like at school, I was really interested in product design. So I went to university and did that. And Compact Cane was born out of my final year project at uni. So Compact Cane is a digital mobility aid for visually impaired people. And it uses ultrasound, it uses like haptics, so vibration, to be able to like turn the physical world into like a sensory experience, all with the aim of giving visually impaired people a more discreet mobility aid, and also a digital mobility aid as well, with the way that our society is going in terms of like technology as well. But I guess it's a bit of a backstory. I love design. Like right now, I work on Compact Cane. I also do some freelancing as well. I love graphic design, product design. I'm fascinated. Like I like engineering, just creating things for people and helping people through design. That's really where my heart is.
Yeah. It's amazing because like it's all about visuals. It's like kind of birthing something and then like getting an idea essentially and putting them, conceptualizing that. And that's just so amazing. And you're definitely a woman of many talents, definitely not being boxed. So I love it. I love it. Thank you. So Yeah, so you kind of shared a little bit with us about like, you know, why you went for the compact cane, but could you share with us a bit more about, you know, how that idea came? Because I think from what I remember, it's a project at university, right?
Yeah.
But did you have like ideas prior to that? How did you kind of get yourself into that situation of having that brief?
Yeah, so yeah, final year project. I guess a little bit of a backstory. Um, what I guess is the starting point, the journey was actually on a sad note. I lost. I had a bereavement basically, and it really moved me. And it made me start to think about like the meaning of life, and why am I here? Am I being purposeful? With what I was doing in terms of using my skill set? And at the time, I was on placement year, and I just started to ask a load of questions, and I felt, I need to be creating products with a social impact. That's where I felt my heart was, somewhere where I could see the positive impact and be sure that the work I was doing was leading to something that could change someone's life or be positive. So that was a kind of backstory. So when I went into my final year, essentially, like most final years, you can do like a dissertation, or so you can choose your own project. In my case, because I'm doing basically product design, I decided to do a design project in my final year, and so I chose this brief. The brief was to modernize and I think it was refine and innovate. I think there's a few words. The white cane used by visually impaired people. And when I saw the brief, I thought, this is going to be a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to be able to explore some technologies, but really and truly do something I'm really passionate about, which is called user-centered design. So it's pretty self-explanatory by the name, but keeping the user at the center of the design. So that was how I stumbled across the opportunity to start Compact Cane. And it really just started from me listening to stories. So I went on YouTube. I was Googling a lot and was trying to find, so I was based in Bath at my university at the time. So I did a lot of research trying to find people who were either visually impaired, worked with visually impaired people, or was working in that field in some sense. And in fact, I'm so thankful I was able to kind of create like a little community and get a lot of help, get a lot of insight into the problem, because I myself am not visually impaired, and I don't know anyone at that time, I didn't know anyone who was visually impaired. So in order to create a product that was going to be purposeful and meaningful, I knew that the kind of cornerstone of what I was doing was to have empathy and to really try and put myself in their shoes. Obviously not to like inappropriate or appropriation, but really trying to embrace and understand, so that I'm not creating something in vain or because I like it, but the customer doesn't like it. But yeah, so I started at university and just continue the project. Started from research and the usual process of coming up with some ideas, turning those ideas like prototyping and testing them with the users, getting their feedback, and then it just developed, got some support from my university and other places, and that's where I am today now, in the process of bringing it to market.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because it just shows that you've done like primary research, you know, secondary research, you've gone out, spoken to people, and you used that keyword there, empathy, because that was actually one of my questions was what research you've done, but you kind of like expanded on that anyway. You know, you did research online, and then you also, you know, directly engaged with people who are visually impaired. And so what does empathy actually mean for you? Like, how do you define empathy?
Um, how do I define? Um, and that's a good question. Hmm, I guess
Means different things to different people, right? It's really just like, how did you feel? Because that journey, that experience of engaging with someone, you know, who you're trying to satisfy, you're trying to serve them and provide them with something, you know, how did you feel like engaging with them? What did it mean to you to kind of deliver your compact cane to them and birth that basically?
mm, um, yeah, I guess it was just an emotional journey. So before starting the project, I had no real true perception of what it was like to live with visual impairment. So I guess in answering your first question about what I think empathy is, and it relates to how I felt, at the time. I think empathy is about listening, and I guess an analogy is like imagining two people or two hearts and trying to connect, like having a heart to heart basically, and really trying to, I don't even know how to explain it with words, but I guess trying to
Your
embrace.
video, like, I know you described it as like actually just observing the person as well. It's not just because sometimes people can't like explain what they feel or how their situation is. And I remember like in your video, you know, you mentioned like you observed them, you watched how they did stuff, not just also listening and hearing. And that's what kind of stood out for me when I heard about your experience around empathy.
Yeah, that is definitely, yeah, you're right. So that's definitely a part of it. Like, so I guess different aspects are sitting down with the person and listening. But one of the things, I just remember the phrase now, something I wrote in my dissertation. I think it was basically reading between the lines. So when someone's saying something, you have to like observing, well, how are they saying it? Because they could be saying something, and not that they're lying, but like in the way that they're saying something that's actually meaning something else. So, for example, you know, someone may say, "Oh, I like my white cane," but the way they say it would show like they may have a bit of an ambivalence, like what is that, and trying to examine that. So, for me, it was yes, listening, but paying attention to how they're saying it, their body language, also just hanging out. So I was hanging out with them at different points and trying to observe, you know, how do they do like everyday life, or do for me I was focusing more on like getting out and about, like navigating a space and just really trying to understand that. So yeah, you're totally right. And I guess the term is, I think it's called ethnographic studies. So it's I think it's just observing a person in their natural habitat, let's say. But yeah, that's definitely a part of it. But I think for me that was like the scientific, I'm going to observe and trying to see what's in between the lines. But I guess the other side, which I guess I noticed in myself over the last few years before starting Compact came, is I think I just have an empathetic heart. I don't know how to explain it, but even like outside of work, there's times when something happens and I'm feeling like the emotion, I'm feeling what it's like to, I mean, obviously I don't know exactly, but I feel like I'm getting closer to experiencing the pain or you know, the emotion that another person is feeling. So I definitely felt like that helped me during the process, especially at difficult times, like hearing difficult things from what they were saying about the stigma, for example, or even just a sight loss journey, what it's like to lose their sight. But yeah, it was a number of those things, including like the emotional side as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because it's so different to sympathy, right? And I think some people, especially in the industry, some people just aren't aware of like the difference. So thank you for kind of like just explaining what it really meant for you, because you've been on that journey of going into someone's, like walking in someone's shoes, that you've not had someone around you like experience or be in that position, but you really went into their kind of like environment and experience it with them, you know, to learn how to kind of serve them essentially.
Well, try my
Thank
best.
you.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take you back all the way to the beginning again.
Okay.
Like, did you have in your mind, so the compact cane's obviously, you know, a white small device that fits in your fist, but did you have that visual? Like, did you have a design similar to that at the very beginning, or was it just as you were like engaging and learning that? Because what I want to highlight is, you know, people have a design or they have an idea, they're like, yeah, I'm going to run with this idea, you know,
Yeah.
and you need to kind of have a hypothesis, you need to test it out, see if it works. So I want to know, did you have that like a visual design of what is now the compact cane, or did it kind of like grow and evolve as you were like working on it?
Great question. When I started, to be honest, I had nothing when I started. I just had a problem and no idea what to do. But it ended up, the first sketch of compact cane doesn't look anything like what it looks like today. Even when I graduated, so the project I actually worked on, the product looks quite different to what compact cane is today. And I'll show you later on the prototype. And yeah, it definitely was a development process. So again, going through that user-centered design process, I started with a sketch. Because I'm working with visually impaired people, it was important that I went and created something tactile very quickly. So I did rapid prototyping, so using Arduino, so different types of electronics, and just cardboard and foam and stuff like that, trying to get things together. And in doing that, I went and got feedback from the users, and essentially I did it a few iterations of that. So even in Agile, I think it's called build, test, feedback, and revise or review. I was basically doing that. I did that 3 times at university. So the first thought in my mind, you know, that's what it potentially looked like for the first version. But after getting feedback, it was pretty clear, okay, it needs to look like this, it needs to do this instead. And so, yeah, it totally developed. So that was the first stage at university. But then once I finished university, so I guess what the product at university was like a unit attached to a white cane. So someone could use their white cane and fold it away. And when it's folded away, they can still use it to detect obstacles, basically. But as I was, I guess, putting more of a business hat on and more of a commercial mindset, I started to think, okay, what is manufacturable? What is the most scalable idea? And in terms of marketable as well, because there were a few issues with the original product. So really, I mean, I think it was about a year from that first thought, or when I was awarded the Alumni Innovation Award, a year from then, I really started to do some development. And so I kind of made a big jump from what it looked like at uni to what it is, well, what the prototype I'm going to show you was then. And it was based on different bits of research, again, going to users, getting their feedback, but also a bit of a gut feel as to like what I needed to do as well. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, huge development. But I think the concept of what I was trying to do in the beginning is generally the same, bar having to pivot a little bit, but that's typical in business, basically.
Yeah. No, you said something that stood out there actually, because I think sometimes people think more is more, if I can put that to as you know a term. But sometimes less is more. You know, like just giving people what they need as opposed to all these extra gadgets and things. It's not necessary. And I think simplifying and putting out what is sometimes known as an MVP, you know, the minimal viable product, put that out there and learn from that, because now you've learned from, you know, potential consumers, but actually selling it, you want to also learn from them. And then what you might sell in 5 years' time might be a little bit different, or you might sell some add-ons and so on. And it's good. And I'm glad to actually hear like you had all these extra features, but then you kind of like stripped it back to like what was the vision at the beginning, and focus on providing that. So thank you for actually sharing that, because I didn't know that. So a question that I was going to ask next about was like, you know, your experience, like your personal experience, emotions and stuff like that. And you've kind of, you know, shared with us how you kind of felt along the journey. But is there anything else that you wanted to share? Like, did you feel any kind of like frustrations at any point? Like, oh, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? I'm not even, I don't know. Did you have any kind of like thoughts that were kind of like challenging, but also sometimes you get those negative thoughts? Did you have any? Did you experience any of those?
Yeah, definitely. So really so right at the beginning of the project, so like I said, I did research, and I got to a point, I remember talking to my lecturer, and it comes to a point where I think I had 2 weeks until the deadline to submit the specification of a product, and I had no product because I was sitting there with all this research, and I was saying to her, like, I just don't know what to do. I've got all this research, I've got a few ideas, but none of them are sticking, and I wasn't feeling passionate about any of them. And it was really frustrating, and I think that was the first time, and it was really good actually, the first time I had to deal with that feeling of uncertainty, because before, especially as an engineer, maybe being in an academic program, I would never really experience that element of uncertainty. But in this final year project where I needed to submit something and I had nothing, and she kind of just told me trust the process, basically, and I was a bit, oh, well. So that was the first time of kind of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But thankfully, I think it was a few days after that, I sat down with the user and we had a really like a heart-to-heart, and it became clear what the idea I needed to pursue was. So I'm really thankful for that. But I guess that's the product side, but the entrepreneurial side, yeah, that is full of yeah, frustrations and questions, and I say self-doubt. I don't know how to explain it, but there's loads of just, am I the right person? Am I meant to be doing this? Even to this day, actually, like it just is a kind of continual thing, and it's just like how you deal with it. So I think for me, more recently, I've just been analyzing everything that's been happening. I mean, COVID has been happening. The market has changed. There's so much uncertainty. And I've been in this period of time for the last, I'm going to say 6 months, so probably when COVID started, of just contemplating and reanalyzing, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is now the right time to do it? And just having to pivot and make a series of decisions. But it is a very uncomfortable time, to be honest, where I don't know the answers, to be completely honest. But going back to what you were saying about an MVP, my plan still is to get that MVP out, to still get it to users, so people can can try it, and I can get a better idea of like how the product is working, what impact it's making, and really just taking it step by step. I think that's the biggest part of this journey, just taking it step by step, because things change all the time. I mean, COVID is one example, but even before COVID, you make a plan and it just changes. So just having to be agile. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. You actually mentioned something there, which is MMP, which is minimal marketable product.
Oh,
So
so
you're
yeah.
trying to get your most like the minimal marketable, item out there,
Yeah.
and essentially, make some money and impact lives, because that ultimately is what you're doing.
Mm,
You're making it easier for these people.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else around like the product development journey that you want to share with us? Because ultimately we want to inspire people along that journey. We've talked about emotions, even the negative ones, but is there at any point that you felt like, regardless of what industry you're in or whatever it is you're trying to get out, your MVP, whatever our viewers MVP is, like, is there anything along your journey that you want, your product development journey, that you want to share, that you want to like just get us to kind of understand about your compact cane?
Yeah. I guess just an encouragement. So despite everything I've just shared, if there's any, I mean, the real sides of product development and entrepreneurship, I can't see myself doing anything else. So if you have an idea, whatever it is, I definitely encourage you to take what you call a lean approach, where you create something exactly what you were just saying, Bimpe, which is creating a minimal viable product. So something that is really simple, and so you can just go out and give it to people, get some feedback really quickly, and just develop it from there. And if you have any ideas, I really do encourage you to pursue it, give it a go. Firstly, it's fun. It's like there's just such a huge sense of fulfillment, being able to create something that I'm passionate about, something that I've worked on, something that I can see can impact people's lives as well, and as a business can make some money as well. And so if you also feel like you have an idea like that, I definitely encourage you to try. It's really important to have a community around you. I'm really thankful for the numerous communities that I was blessed with during this process. And similarly, if you have an idea, definitely like reach out, like go Facebook, LinkedIn are great places. You may be surprised that even in your local area, like an entrepreneurs group, or if you have a specific product that you're developing, like develop like an app development group and stuff like that. And just having that kind of camaraderie, because yeah, like, I mean, there's power in collaboration, but definitely to encourage people that if you have an idea, it is really worth giving it a go. You may have something that's amazing and can innovate a whole space, can change so many people's lives. You really don't know. And yeah, I think down the product development process, there's just so many amazing things, like so many things that I've learned that I wouldn't have learned anywhere else. The other side of it is also, you're learning, and it's skills that you can put under your belt. So if you decide at one point you don't want to pursue the idea, you can go into something else with a huge amount of skill sets, like communication, even just going through a product design process and having to problem solve as well. But definitely an experience I would recommend, especially especially if you have an idea that you really believe in, that you're really passionate about. You can see it creating a lot of impact. And yeah, I guess that's what I have to say. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, thank you. So you actually mentioned something here. I'm currently recording for my series on networking,
Okay.
and I really didn't want to tell this story, but I'm going to, because how myself and Nia actually like got introduced is through your dad.
Yeah.
So I worked with your dad about 10 years ago, in fact, 11 years ago. And I won't say where, but we were both in IT. And 10 years ago, we were working together and we kept in touch. And it was through a networking platform such as LinkedIn. And that's how I saw, your dad tell your story around what you were doing. And I was like, my goodness, I definitely need you on my channel. Like, this is the kind of lion heart that I need. And it was through the power of like networking. I didn't know you like 6 months ago, and here we are talking and sharing your story. And I just wanted to talk about like the importance of like the fact that through networking, it's not just your skills, it's not just what you know, it's the power of like putting two minds together, asking people questions, getting people to point you into the right direction. And you emphasized something important there. The second thing you mentioned was like certain frame, like you've mentioned earlier, you use agile kind of frameworks, methodologies, and approach. You talked about the build test, and what I usually use is build test measure, but you talked about build test and I forgot
Feedback,
the last one.
feedback, and then review. So it's like a loop. Goes around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess the review and the feedback is it's a form of
Yeah.
measuring.
Exactly.
So it's the same, and I've seen this kind of framework in so many different ways. Sometimes you get 4 different phases, sometimes it's 3 different phases or activities, should I say, rather than phases. Are there other like frameworks for someone who's like in your space? So a lot of the things you've been talking about is for anyone to kind of inspire them to move forward. But for yourself, someone who's in the engineering space and manufacturing space, were there any kind of like frameworks or um, ideas or ideologies that you use to kind of progress through and keep you going, keep you on track essentially? Because I think one thing you mentioned, just going to jump in to remind you about one thing you did mention,
Yeah.
is it was the last 2 weeks, and that's when you're like, whoa, need to get things, you had certain um, there were uncertainties, and I would call that probably a sprint, because it's when you have a time box, a short period of time, that's when you're like, okay, what can we get out? What can we get done in 2 weeks period? So for me, I was reminded of sprinting or sprints and scrum. But was there anything that you particularly use for someone in your space in manufacturing and engineering? Is there anything, just a few frameworks or stuff that you might have used, or was it just purely the one that you mentioned earlier?
No. Yeah. So actually, within my project, and I guess within the space, I didn't see many people, or at least I didn't see many other design projects doing the same sort of agile process. The typical design process or design engineering is, I think it starts with research. I think it starts with a brief or problem. Then you do some research, and then you probably redefine the problem a little bit more specifically. And then once you have a good problem and a good, let's say, specification, you go and you do some essentially brainstorming, different ways of brainstorming and coming up with ideas. And then after ideas, which is called like concept stage, then going into the concept development, which is essentially like turning those sketches and getting more detail on them. You may even go into CAD, so computer aided design, which is essentially a way of you turning your sketches or what's in your head into something 3D, so that you can, for example, 3D print it, but it could be other ways of prototyping it as well. And kind of whilst you're in that space, you're also going through something called embodiment design and then detail design. Embodiment, again, is just kind of like as the word kind of suggests, getting more creating a more physical model, like and more detail in there. Detail design is like, okay, I've got a prototype, I know that it works okay, I know my users kind of like it. I now need to make it manufacturable. So then you'd look at like materials, then you'd look at, okay, what supplier should I go to? You design in a way, like in enough detail that you can create like a blueprint essentially, and send it off to manufacturers that they can look at it, understand how your product is meant to be made, and make it for you. And then after that, it would be deployment. So that would be like selling, or whatever the end deliverable is. So I guess for me, like as I've been going through the process, I've been kind of tracking on like where I've been. And to be honest, it's not always linear. And I guess that's one of the things that I learned during my degree. It's not always linear. But in my case, I guess an overarching story is that I've tried to keep it relatively linear. So right now, I guess I'm in the embodiment stage, even though I'm looking at manufacturing, like my minimum wow, my mind's gone blank. Minimum viable product. Sorry. I know that once I get into the market, I'll get more feedback and be improving, and there'll be a point when I turn to detailed design, and then it'll be more detailed. I go and maybe make it for like 1,000 in volume, for example, or tens of thousands. So that's been one of the main frameworks that I've been using for my specific field, but there's other things as well. So there's things called double diamond, which is basically how you like coming up with ideas and then selecting ideas, and that happens quite a lot, and different tools you can use. As you said, yeah, a sprint, I do that as well. So there's many times I've had to do a sprint where I just need to put myself under pressure to deliver something at a specific time. And then there's loads of different innovation tools. So when I'm stuck on an idea or stuck on a problem, I don't know what ideas to, what ideas I can give us as a solution. Triz is like a set of tools that you can use to kind of trigger your mind to think outside of the box, essentially. So there's loads of tools, but I guess the main one is that design process of concept down to detailed design, basically.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for like sharing like the whole like framework you use, but also other approaches that can be utilized. I probably may never end up in that space, but at least I know I can point some of my like tutees and so on, and mentees to that if they're ever in that space. But also this means anyone watching the channel in the manufacturing space knows what you've kind of used to kind of get your idea on track. So we will talk about what's coming next, and you've kind of started talking about that already. But let's have a look at this compact cane.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll show you firstly for context. So okay. This is what a white cane looks like. So where's the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like a collapsible or a foldable white cane. So in case you don't know, a white cane is a mobility aid used by visually impaired people or people who live with sight loss to detect obstacles, so to figure out where things are, and also to tell other people that they're visually impaired. So I can show you now, like I can, oh gosh, sorry.
How long is one, by the way? Is it about like 5 foot? Or how long?
It depends on how tall you are. So it's supposed to go to like your armpit. So this one I think is 1.5 meters. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's around that amount. Yeah. But yeah, so this is what a white cane looks like. It's quite long and it's white, as the name suggests. So people can see it quite distinctly as someone's walking down the street. And that's a great thing because there's a load of places that you want to tell people that you're visually impaired, for example, like crossing a road. But when I started to do compact cane, one of the main things that was coming through was, I guess, the stigma. So the stigma of using the white cane. So what that means is, imagine losing your sight and you, so like, let's say for myself, I like to skateboard, I like to cycle, I like to do a load of things, I like to watch films. So when you lose your sight, I mean, firstly, sight is a huge sense that we rely upon. But when you lose it, it's almost like losing a part of your identity. because we rely on it so much, and also because it just enables us to do a lot of things. And so the psychological process of losing your sight can be quite a big thing. And so when picking up a white cane, it can be like this is a symbol of my blindness, this is a symbol of my visual impairment. And so there's a lot of people who really do struggle to use a white cane. And so they may choose not to use a white cane, they may choose to go and do a guide dog, get a guide dog, but that's also a long process. And so if you don't use either of those things, and you have to rely on people. So there's kind of a space for creating something that was discreet, that didn't have that stigma, but would still allow people to navigate. And then the other side is when you do use it, people just treat you differently. So the main reason why I started this project was one of my friends now, she went for an interview, but she told me she's not bringing her white cane because she felt like as soon as she walked in, as soon as she would walk into the interview, she felt the interviewer would judge her basically and think that she's less competent because of the cane. And so this is what I've designed. So this is one of the prototypes that I've designed.
You want to just place your hand behind it? Do you
Oh
want
yeah,
to yeah,
like that.
yeah. So just so we, yeah,
yeah. There we go. So this is what the prototype looks like. So this black thing here, that's the ultrasonic sensor. So the point of compact cane, like I started to explain earlier on, is it's a digital and discrete mobility aid that allows visually impaired people to essentially see or sense their world. So the way it works is this is an ultrasonic sensor. So it sends out a really high pitched sound. We can't hear it. Maybe dogs can hear it. I don't think so though. But it will send out a ping, and it'll send out a sound that we won't hear. And depending on how close something is, the sensor will be able to kind of calculate how far that thing is away by how long that sound took to come back. So it's the same way that bats navigate a space. It's called echolocation. Other words that relate to this are like sonar. So if you think like navigation and ships and stuff like that. So this technology has been around for quite a while. And it's quite a relatively reliable way of navigating. So I decided to use it for this. And I guess the way the compact cane works is it takes that information on how close something is. And I've created this, I call vibration language. So I've kind of translated what distance means. So I guess in simple terms, if something is close by, then the vibrations are a higher intensity and frequency. And if it's further away, then it's a lower intensity, low frequency. And if there's nothing within the range that I've set, which is about the length of a white cane, then the user won't feel anything. And so what you get is like you get like different sensations, and you're able to kind of paint your surroundings. So as you walk around the room, right in front of me, so if I was to point it to the screen right here, it would probably be quite intense. But if I were to move it away and go back over here, because there's nothing here, I wouldn't feel anything. And as I move around and objects are closer and closer to me, I'd feel like an increasing vibration essentially. And I've created quite intuitive and quite simple. So when I give it to users, it's within moments, a few seconds, that people do understand it and are able to get around the space. But I've created it that way so that someone can easily pick it up, and it becomes like second nature after a while. And it can be used to understand the space around them, for them to navigate or to explore, or for whatever reasons they want, like if they want to follow someone, like a guide or something like that as well. But yeah, this is compact cane. This is this is a prototype that I'm working on.
Curious, with the distance, how close because you showed the object at the back of your room, how close, sorry, does something have to be before you start to get a small level of like vibration feeling?
So that's totally, I mean, at the moment, I think it's set to, I'm gonna say half a meter.
Okay.
I think it's half a meter because of the context in which someone's using this. They'll be walking at pace, more likely outside. Sorry?
Much slower than like someone who isn't visually impaired, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and so using having that as a starting range, but it goes to I think I have like 1.5 meters, and then different like zones. So let's say if something is between 0.5 meter and let's say a meter, then you get a medium vibration. If it's below 0.5 meter, it's really intense, and if it's a meter to 0.5 meter, I mean 1.5 meters, then it's less and less intense than that. But yeah, but that's totally codable. Like I can change it. So the way I've coded this is like an Arduino board, which is basically like a chip, like a board that you find in your phone or really in anything, but you can plug it into your laptop, and it's quite user friendly. You can just change your code. So I could change it to something, and that's something more appropriate based on the user feedback that I get. But right now, the range that I've got seems to be working okay. So, yeah.
Oh no, thank you for actually like sharing quite a bit of detail around like how you put it all together, because I don't know, some people are quite they kind of keep to themselves their idea and how they kind of like what's included in the package, you know. But you've kind of like shared with us how it all kind of works, and the technologies you've used as well to make it work. And it sounds like you have a mashup of two things. You've got like plastic, which is what they were using previously, but then you're also using technology that, you know, ships are using to detect the distance of staff and stuff like that. So it's like a mashup of two different, I don't know if you've heard the concept, mashups.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah.
No, okay. So it's
Yeah.
just two like different ideas kind of coming together to formulate one idea that's actually purposeful, that has a purpose and is useful basically. So no, thanks for kind of expanding and sharing with us, you know, what it is and how you use it, and how someone who's visually impaired would also engage with it and kind of customize it as well to what they need, which you mentioned there's a chip and they just take it out and change the settings if needed. So no, that's actually really great. Thank you so much for like demonstrating how it be used and stuff. I will kind of take a snip of um, how you've we'll share details of how people can find you, how they can find your compact cane anywhere, and they can see like a video essentially
Yeah.
from your platform or your social media of how it's used by someone who is actually visually impaired as well. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about what's next for you. You've kind of touched on it slightly already for us, but what's next? You're on that journey of kind of trying to commercialize this, and for all the hard work you've done, start to kind of make some money from it, and hopefully maybe at some point you start to employ more and more people and create more and more products, you know, that can be used by whether it's someone who's, I don't know, maybe who knows, you'll be going on the journey of someone who's deaf instead of someone who's blind. But it sounds like you had some other ideas anyway that you had to kind of park till later, and come out with an MVP. So are you already thinking about what's coming next, or are you just kind of focused on commercializing and getting feedback from customers really? What's next?
Yeah. So in one sense, I think I'm maybe like 70% focused on getting this product out and commercializing it and getting feedback first before I commit on any other ideas. But that being said, I do have visions for where this can go. I definitely, I'm excited. I'm excited at the potential, as are like people in my community as well, of what this can turn into as a digital mobility aid for visually impaired people. And just what our cities are turning into. Like there's a lot of opportunities in smart cities and mobility as well. So there is a lot of potential, and so I'm excited for that, and I have a few ideas or places of application with that, but definitely more focused on this first hurdle and just seeing what happens, because at the end of the day it's business, and I could go out there, I could try and make this product, find out that it's not viable. So that means well, viable, feasible, meaning that in terms of how much it costs compared to how much someone would pay for it, it may not work. But these are all things that happen. But I'm just going to try my best with this product, and see. But I guess what's coming up next is I'm aiming for by the end of this year, Compact Cane to be available to buy on my website, and then after that, just kind of observing how people interact with it as well. But yeah, those are the main things I'm thinking about doing in the coming months.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. And I guess to kind of share a bit about your journey from having an idea and having it packaged up. You also are looking, I remember you've been learning quite a number of entrepreneurial skills. So you talked about all the skills and frameworks and so on around manufacturing, engineering, development essentially, and basically product development. But then now you've gone through, like, I guess, a journey of learning a number of skills, and I want you to kind of tell us those skills, because no one person has everything they need, you know, when they start, but you just have to be malleable and agile and nimble as a person as well, right? To kind of achieve what you want to achieve. So tell us a bit about some of the things you're currently learning to kind of get your products out there.
Yeah, great question. So I guess things I've learned and then things I'm currently learning. Things I've learned, one of the biggest things is, I guess, pitching or public speaking. So yeah, I mean, my degree and the things I've done in the past have given me opportunities to present, but it's very different when you're presenting or pitching to an audience and you're trying to convince them to put money into your company. And just that whole process of being able to present yourself and your brand or your product as well. That's one of the main things that I've taken away during this entrepreneurial journey. I guess more recently is the more technical side of product development. So I mean, it's a bit technical, but essentially, how can I make this product? How do I explain this? How do I make this product in the most inexpensive way without compromising like the safety? Without compromising the safety of the user or the product. And so I've been looking at like CE marking. So when products go, in order for any product to be sold in the UK or in the EU, or even the US as well, it needs to be certified. It needs to go through some testing to make sure the product is safe and won't like explode, for example. So these are all things that I'm learning, things that I've never really, I mean, I've known about them before, but I'm actually having to deal with it now and design this product well enough that, you know, it will pass those tests and be useful and safe for users as well. But yeah, it's definitely a mix of I guess entrepreneurial and kind of charismatic skills of being able to present and hold yourself well. And I guess that goes into networking in when you're talking to people, you know, communicating well what you're trying to achieve. But then also the technical side more recently in how on earth am I going to get this product made and made well enough on the budget that I have, because things are tight as well. But hopefully that answers your question with like the range of skills.
No, thank you. Yeah, because that's one thing, like the CE that you mentioned, for someone who's trying to put their idea out there, particularly a product, not an idea, because a service wouldn't require that necessarily. But no, it's good, because it's so important to understand, like, at the beginning of your journey, you've grown so much, and we have to appreciate that growth. Otherwise, we're not going to achieve what we're trying, like what you're visualizing. I don't want to pick your brains about what's coming next, because maybe hopefully in the future we'll talk about, when I say coming next, I mean beyond Compact Cane, what's coming next. Because firstly, that's yours, and you probably don't want to share for the world necessarily. But also, it's just there's so much growth that what you share now might end up being quite different. It's likely to be quite different anyway to what you'll be doing in a year's time, you know, especially if you're agile and flexible in your approach. So the last question that I have around like what next is, what advice do you give to someone who's like at the position that you are right now, And what advice do you give? You've already given some nuggets already, some
Mhm.
good nuggets already. But what advice would you give to someone who is young, probably younger than you, in fact? Because I've seen 5-year-olds come up with business
Mm,
ideas that are actually businesses.
yeah.
Um, and so someone who's young, but even just older people, because I feel like we don't sometimes realize that we can solve our own problem. What I
Mm,
mean by that is, I'm not saying necessarily that someone who's blind can build what you've built, but someone who has a problem can actually produce a solution
mm,
that fixes their problem, but then also fixes the problem for other people. So,
yeah.
just share, any advice that you'd give to someone who's in your current position and trying to get their idea out the door and monetize and commercialize it, basically.
Yeah. Advice. Um, I guess a few things. I guess echoing what I was saying before. Um, there's a saying, but I think it's "No man is an island," basically, something like that. And there's just so much value in being surrounded by people. So I'm a sole founder, which has its own challenges, but I'm really thankful for having an advisory board. So that is basically a group of advisors that span a range of different expertise, and I can go to and ask tough questions. They can kind of pressure test ideas, and I can bounce ideas off of them, and that's been like invaluable. So having an idea, I think one of the things I definitely advise to it is find, I guess, like take a step back and kind of look around you and see like who's around me that maybe has started a business, maybe who's better at me in these particular skill sets that I know I need to develop my product, and essentially just share your ideas and just create relationship. Like I think that's one of the things that has really helped me sustain Compact Cane to this day, having that community. So that's just one. There's other formal communities that give me business support and product support as well. But I think like having like a team, that would be, I definitely would recommend that for sure. Um, Ideas, pursuing ideas. I guess me putting more of a, how can I explain this? Like a hindsight hat on. I would also advise, um, if you're coming up with an idea, um, evaluate like what else is happening. So I guess without me being completely open, basically, in starting in starting Compact Cane, I'm developing it, and I've just come to a point where I'm realizing actually I feel like I want to do different things, and evaluating, because I think in this day and age there's a lot of people who have like side hustles and you can do multiple things. So I guess like say if you have a job and you're thinking of exploring this idea, I'd advise keep your job, um, and work on your idea on in your evenings, in your spare time, and evaluate if it has legs. And I suppose that if it has legs is really this kind of buzzword called traction, which is essentially you go and you're giving it to the people who you're trying to serve, and they're coming back and saying, this is an amazing product, I will pay you for this. And when you sit down, you analyze it and you think about it, it's like, actually this could give me enough money that I can quit my job and work on this full time, and that my heart is in this, and I'm passionate to pursue this for the next 5-10 years, for example. So these are things just to evaluate. But I guess at the beginning it's kind of just like have fun. If you have an idea, and you have the resource and the time, just explore it, have fun, make the most out of it, because there's so much you can learn, and so much impact you can make. But I suppose like in those coming steps, as you're analyzing, is this a bigger is this a business that I can grow? Definitely like take some time to evaluate, is this the right time? Do I have the right framework around me? Do I have the right people? Can I get investment and stuff like that? These are just things to consider, but not to worry about that too much at the beginning, but allow like the fun of innovation to take place at the beginning of the process. So I think those are the key things I'd advise at this point.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. So there are two questions. And so it's, what do you have, a verse or quote or an affirmation or something that just kind of keeps you going through this, like through just life and the journey that you're experiencing?
Wow.
It's a personal question, isn't it? I
uh,
know, but yeah, I think we need to keep grounded. We need to stay grounded sometimes, and sometimes for me, I have a grounded like thing that I keep, keep me thinking about, being humble and staying focused on what I want to do. But for some people, it's like to inspire them to keep going, So I have multiple ideas, and I need something to keep me grounded. So it's funny you mentioned that earlier, but I didn't want to like touch on it too much. But yeah, sometimes I have a number of ideas, and I'm like, my head's bubbling, and I just need things to kind of keep me grounded. Just say, okay, just stay focused on this one thing right
yeah.
now. You committed to that, so just stay focused on that thing. So yeah, do you have one?
Wait, sorry, just to quickly, so are you asking like if I have like an affirmation or like something to keep me grounded as I'm going through the process?
Yeah, not necessarily grounded, but just something that keeps you going through your current journey. Like, is there something that you like, or a quote that you just always kind of refer back to? Like you said, no man's an island. It might just be that one, because some people, like sometimes I forget to ask for help. So is that yours that you want to like share with us?
Um, sorry, it's just searching my mind. I think what's the thing that's been keeping me going? I think it's maybe two things, but maybe one, let's say quote, and then one kind of principle. So I guess the principle is more so just me pursuing this. I have a lot of or for a lot of the process, I've had a kind of sense of peace in the sense that logically my skill sets align with what I'm doing, and my heart is in this, and so I can just see myself continuing to do this, and that kind of being like, oh, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, I remember that actually, I'm able to do this. I feel like this idea has been given to me. I'm a Christian, so I believe that God has given me this idea, and so I'm going to just continue to pursue it. And yeah, I think that's one thing that keeps me going. The other side, I guess it's like a quote, but it's just that everything's going to be okay. And I guess I think, I mean, I'm quite a religious person, so I guess me going through this process, there's been a lot of times where I'm really nervous, or I guess actually stressed or worried about things that I can't control, or I have no idea what's going to happen. And it's just that kind of thought in that mind of like, actually, you know what, God is in control, or things will just work out and be fine. And that you can ask a variety of different people across a span of different industries or whatever they're doing. It doesn't even have to be business. And it's true that things work out. Like things may happen. For example, I've faced many different disappointments during this process, and there's been times where I'm like, oh, why? What's happening? I may have a few days of like, oh man, this really sucks. But then I'm reminded by maybe someone in my community or by like that thought in my head that actually things are going to be okay. Like it's just a moment, it'll pass, and then I'll get an answer to the question I have, for example, and that kind of keeps me going and it stops me from worrying too much as well. That kind of assurance that things will be fine.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Because I think we all need to have empathy for one another and understand that it's not easy. It's not easy coming up with what you come up with. It never existed before you created it. Whereas some people are kind of like replicating ideas, like, and they're struggling. And you need to understand it's just not easy. And you need like things to kind of either keep you grounded, keep you motivated, keep you going, something. And thanks for sharing that, because yeah, just sharing your experience as a Christian as well, and your journey. And then so I love showing appreciation. That's just one thing about me. So I have to say thank you to you again. But I also feel it's important you talk about your network, you talk about the people that supported you along your journey. It's not really to highlight any particular individual or any particular organization, but you can if you want to. But I think it's important to show like very quickly, like this person or this thing impacted me and for this reason, and they did this and they contributed. The impact to show like people really do impact. If you get seek support, you really do get the support that you need. You might not always get the support that you want, but you get the support you need. So someone might close the door on you, but what does that do? It makes you stronger to keep going and ask for help from someone else. So just quickly, like just if you want to just mention a few, because I love showing appreciation. Some people have to say, stop thanking me. Like you need to stop thanking me. So that's part of what we do on the Beehive. So yeah.
Okay, appreciation. First and foremost, my parents. So my dad is one of my advisors, and honestly, there are so many times where I'm just not sure what to do, and I go and just have a meeting, impromptu meeting with one of them, and we just talk through strategically and logically through a problem, and we're able to, come up with a solution for that. That has been totally like invaluable during this process. So my University of Bath, they were the first ones to give me like seed funding, and they really believed in me. And Set Squared, which is like a business incubator as well, they just gave me invaluable business support and really helped me come from a student or graduate and help me along that entrepreneurial career path, I guess, or like learning those skill sets. Bethnal Green Ventures, so they were the first company to invest in Compact Cane, and I went through their accelerator program, which is essentially like a few months of fast track learning about how to run and sustain a business. We're talking about like sales and partnerships and marketing and research and stuff like that. They were amazing, and they are amazing to this day. They continue to support me, continue to encourage me, not only on the practical side of running a business, but also on like, I guess, the day-to-day, the emotional side, like being able to talk and know that I have someone in my corner as well. I'm now a member of Makerversity, which is this makerspace in central London in Somerset House, and they've been great as well, being able to have a place I can go make things and get product support as well, and just opportunities to grow. And then I guess like just in general, like my friends and family, or family friends as well. I guess it's just that continual belief, like, and support, like as I've been going through this, especially when it's difficult and I feel lonely running this. Sometimes I'm just hanging with my friends, and they just encourage me and remind me, like, this is a good idea, continue to do what you do, and helping me, maybe even like recommending me to something or keeping me in mind when I hear about an opportunity and letting me know. I honestly, like, just so thankful. So all those people, I'm sure I've missed people, like my brother as well. He's a great, amazing entrepreneur, and he's one of my biggest inspirations for entrepreneurship for sure. But yeah, I think there's a number of people that I wanted to just acknowledge and say thank you to.
Thank you. Now, what you've done there is you're allowing people to network. Basically, you've just announced a number of different organizations and places people can kind of tap into so that they can start their journey if they're in that engineering manufacturing space. And even for some of the things you've just mentioned is for people who want to start up their business. And you just kind of, I feel now to interview your brother.
Yeah, he's awesome.
But we'll talk about that another time. So final question is, where can we find you? So all your social medias, you can just mention them, but you also, I will have them at the bottom of the video anyway, so you can just click on the link. But just for you to mention, where can we find you? Where can we find the Compact Cane? And you said it should be ready at the end of the year. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. So the Compact Cane website is compactcanes, one word, .com. And on there you can get information about what we're doing. I also have a personal portfolio website called Nia Simpson, Nia Simpson.com. And you can get more information about Compact Cane, but also all the other things that I've done as well and am doing as well as I freelance. On social media, I'm pretty much on all the platforms, but the best platforms to get me on is LinkedIn. for both my personal one, Nia Simpson, and for Compact Cane as well. But actually, Compact Cane is better on Facebook. And really, for all of them, if you just type in Compact Cane, usually I think it's one word as a tag. I think in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, you should be able to find me. But the best platforms are definitely LinkedIn and Facebook for sure. But yeah, I think that's it. I think, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm on anything else. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So thank you so much, Nai. Like it's been amazing, amazing, amazing to have you on the channel.
Cheers. Thank you
And
for having me as well. Appreciate it. Thank you for interviewing me and inviting me as well. Really appreciate it.
bless you. And I generally show a number of appreciation below anyway, but I have to show appreciation to your dad for making this happen as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. And like I know even though it's been a challenging day today for you, you know, we've caught up and you shared what is an inspirational story, a paragon of a great product and product development journey as well. And even now your journey to commercialize and monetize what you're doing. So well done to you. Thank you so much for your time. I
Thank
really appreciate it.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it as well.
Really. Thank you.